Hello, welcome back. I'm David Border and current optometrist inside the Danville Costco doing an educational video series. You can see on my website here the videos I've done already are myopia and myopia control, and today we're going to do a video on hyperopia or farsightedness. So farsightedness is when your eye is too flat to focus far away objects. Sometimes called being farsighted, meaning that your vision far away is better than your vision up close. That's usually true. Young patients can usually focus clearly with the accommodation system. As the eyes age, they lose that ability. Usually patients will need reading glasses, then later need other glasses. We can correct hyperopia with glasses contacts or laser vision surgery. Now that is basically the outline of what I'm going to talk about in this video. So first let's look at this image here. Shows again an example of how an eyeball focuses, or how the refraction system works on an eye. So you have light here coming from far away. It passes through the cornea and it passes through the lens. These are the two parts of the eye that bend the light, and in this case that light comes into a perfect focus right here on the macula. That's a normal eye. If we look at a far-sighted eye, we have light coming from far away, also passing through cornea and lens, but focuses behind the eye. Now you can't really pass light behind the eye, so what the eye really sees is what is hitting here on the retina, which is an out of focus image, or a blurred image. And here it shows that a plus powered or a convex lens will bend the light so that it allows it to come into perfect focus on the macula. Here is another schematic of that. If there's a candle and you look at it, it focuses on the retina. That's normal. If there's a candle and it focuses behind the retina, that's what's happening with hyperopia. So quickly here, a convex lens is one that it has a plus powered lens that has a positive focal length. So if we take light coming from really far away, parallel rays coming in, pass it through a convex lens, it's going to bend that light to a focal point, or a focal plane. And the distance between that lens and the focal point is the focal length. And so you could think that this is how the eye works. If you imagine that there's an eye right here, light from far away focuses, but it focuses behind the eye here. We need a stronger or a more plus convex lens to achieve that. So here I've drawn an eye looking to the left. I have light supposed to be coming in parallel. That light bends to a focus. It doesn't focus at the level of the macula. It focuses, in this example, 3 millimeters behind the macula. And the distance from the macula to this lens here is 24 millimeters. If we want to calculate how strong this system is, we need to do 1 over 24 plus 3. That's the focal distance. And I convert that to meters. And here we get 37.04 diopters. That's how strong this lens is in this system. It's a far-sighted eye. And so we need to focus the light here, so we need a lens that has 24 millimeters as its focal distance. So if we do 1 over 24 millimeters, again convert that, we end up with 41.6 diopters. 41.6 diopters is what this eye needs to have to focus clearly. 37.04 is what it has already, and so the remaining P plus what it has equals what it needs. And so that's how you solve the power of the lens, or the amount of hyperopia in this eye is plus 4.63. So that's a little bit of looking at how the light bends. Here's another example. Let's say we have the system of the eye is a plus 39.6 bar diopters. That means it's going to come to focus behind the 24 millimeters necessary to focus on the retina. So in this case, we know we need whatever power of the lens plus the system that it has to equal 41.6 bar diopter. And so we can solve that the power of the lens is a plus 2. Now, these are examples for hyperopia. It's always going to be plus powered lenses necessary to correct for hyperopia. But here's where the complexity of the eye needs to be explained a little bit more. And basically, I'm getting into here the idea of accommodation. So the eye actually has the ability to change the focusing power. So 39.6 is the least power it can exert, but it can exert more power than that as the eye accommodates. Accommodation is the process by which the vertebrate eye changes optical power to maintain a clear image or focus on an object as its distance varies. And this distances vary for individuals from the far point, the maximum distance from the eye which a clear image can be seen, to the near point, the minimum distance for a clear image. Accommodation usually acts like a reflex, including part of the accommodation vergence reflex, but it can also be consciously controlled. The ways that these changes occur, in the case of the human eye, it's changing the shape of the lens. The posterior position of the lens relative to the retina is fixed in the human eye. And the eyeball does not change, and the cornea does not change. So for the case of a human, it's only the shape of the lens. This is a good point to understand, the far point and the near point. What's the farthest away you can see clear? Now, you're not going to be able to read a medicine bottle 20 feet away, so we're not necessarily talking about really small print, but if we want to sort of measure how far your eye can see, we typically would talk about the far point being infinity. In terms of measuring things in the exam room, we usually measure the far away vision at 20 feet. And the thing is the difference with what your eye has to do to focus infinitely far away and 20 feet away is very marginal, so we can kind of round that down to being 0. But that's the concept of the far point going to the near point. So that if the eye was focusing far away, it didn't have to accommodate or compensate for this close-up viewing here, but if the eye was looking at something, in this example at 25 centimeters, it has to do extra work to bring that into focus on the retina. And so that extra work is accommodation. And in order to focus something at 25 centimeters, the eye needs to exert 4 diopters of extra accommodation on top of the amount needed to focus things on the retina. If you move a little further back to where maybe a paper book might be held, 40 centimeters, and that's going to require 2.5 diopters. A little further back, 67 centimeters is about where a desktop computer will sit. That eye will require 1.5 diopters. And if we look at the stark reality here that the eye around 43 will no longer be able to see the cell phone clearly as we continue along. Even now bookwork becomes uncomfortable when you get about 2.5, and then you continue along to about a 1.5, and around 54 years old, hey, now my computer screen is starting to blur out. So these experiences that patients have with changing vision starting around 43 years old. So I'd like to get into some of the anatomy images here to explain how accommodation works. This is an eye looking up. This is the cornea. That's the sclera. This is the lens. And this is showing the lens in 2 different states. One called the unaccommodated state and one called the accommodated state. The unaccommodated would be focusing to the far point, and the accommodated would be focusing to the near point. Here is, if we look sort of right here, where the cornea and the iris and the ciliary body and the lens interface, then we can see this. This is the iris. It's a pupil margin there. The lens, you see these little zonules or fibers connecting to this muscle tissue here, the ciliary muscle. This is the angle of the eye, the trabecular meshwork, canal of Schlemm. Here's an image looking at a similar thing. You can see the pupil and a nice focus there. the lens. You see the zonules of the lens, ciliary body. Here is an artist's rendering of the angle of the eye where the cornea and the iris abut. So this is very important for glaucoma. This is where fluid drains out of the eye. This is the edge of the ciliary muscle. As you go farther back, you reach the retina. So this is the retina, the eyeball would be here, and then the front of the eye, the cornea, and the lens. So the beginning of the retina, or the far edge of the retina, is in these bays here, and this is where you have the beginning of this muscle. The ciliary muscle and the zonule fibers connect to the lens capsule. Also looking at the ciliary body from the top view here with these lens zonules attaching to the ciliary body. This is an image if we were inside the eye, looking from the middle of the eye to the front, looking at the lens. You can see the back surface of the lens attached via all of these zonules, these fibers, to this ring muscle, the ciliary muscle. Now this is a sphincter muscle, so when the muscle contracts, it gets smaller, and as this muscle contracts and gets smaller, the distance between these fibers and the lens, or the tension on these fibers, loosens. And so when the muscle contracts, the fiber loosens, which allows this lens, which is suspended here otherwise, to protrude back, to sort of fall into its natural shape, which is a more curved state, more round, like a sphere. And when these muscles relax and then the sphincter sort of opens up more, then the tension is increased on these zonules, and that increased tension will force this lens into an alternate state, which is the unaccommodated state where it's more flat across the front. You can see here the back is unchanged. So next, let's see how this apparatus works. Again, with a side view of a lens, and this shows some of the different layers of the lens here. The capsule being the outermost, which attaches to these zonules, and the ciliary muscle extensions or processes. And so as you pull on this down, then this is going to flatten. This will pull when the muscle is relaxed. As you relieve tension here, this is going to bulge more forward. Relieving tension here occurs when this muscle is constricted. So a very counterintuitive process. So by the way, the lens of the eye, it's a normal thing over time. That lens is going to get more cloudy. It gets bigger. It gets bigger as it adds new layers. The outermost layers of these lenses attaching, the end of one suture to the other. And so this grows with layers, and as it gets bigger, it changes features. And as it gets older and exposed to sunlight, the clarity of the lens gets cloudy. So these are types of cataract. Nuclear sclerosis is the most common. So I think this is looking at a side view here, and you can see where sort of pigmentation increases and what that translates to in just looking through a cloudy or foggy window. And so these are cortical spokes. So this is a different type of a cataract. It tends to kind of progress like this. Posterior subcapsular cataract can be a pretty rapid progression. So that's the lens changing. That's the layers of the lens. Here is a horrendous looking picture of supposed to be an eye. So this is the back of the eye here. This is the curve on the front of the eye, the cornea. This is the lens. So this is called Goldstrin's eye. So we're trying to approximate how the focusing system, the refracting system of the eye works, we have to look at the curve and compare the index of refraction of air versus the cornea. Also, the anterior chamber fluid has an index of refraction, and then you have the lens has an index of refraction. This maybe shows multiple different index of refraction, but the eye really has more of a gradient of an index of refraction. Index of refraction is this property of how well a material bends light. Usually when we tell patients that have a real high prescription, we recommend you get the high index lenses, where the lens in your glasses has a I think of it as a stronger capacity to bend light, so you don't need as thick of a lens in order to bend the light. So one point is that the eye, as it grows, the lens gets more layers, so it gets thicker and thicker, and as that happens, this eye would shift to be more nearsighted, or the vision up close would be more clear rather than being more blurry, which is what happens with age with the lens. Why does the eye lose its ability to accommodate is that the index of refraction is increasing, so that each year the focus remains far away, but the ability to zoom up close, that near point, will get further and further away. So here is a study from 2002 about age-related changes in the refractive index of the human lens. And here the refractive index of the lens nucleus exhibits a significant reduction with age. The contribution of the gradient index to the lens power decreases by 0.286 diopters per year, accounting almost entirely for the estimated overall change in lens power with age for these lenses. So this result provides an experimental verification of the cause of presbyopia. So it is the changes to the lens, not the changes in the muscles, controlling the shape of the lens, which causes the eye to lose its zooming ability. So that is the reason that we have presbyopia. That concludes my summary here, my review of hyperopia and presbyopia. Thank you for joining.